Hi everyone, Jesse here with eTrailer. Today we'll be taking a look at and I'll show you how to install the Curt custom fit T-connector trailer wiring on our 2025 Volvo XC60. Trailer wiring is just one of those things that's absolutely essential if you plan on doing any towing with your Volvo. It's going to keep you safe and legal out there on the road by sending a signal from the vehicle to your trailer to make your trailer's lights function properly. That means turn signals, tail lights, and also brake lights. Here's a closer look at our wiring installed. We've mounted this outside the car permanently because our neighbor plans on towing frequently, but you could always just leave everything up inside the vehicle. If you're not towing super frequently, that's just fine. You would just leave the wiring draped outside the vehicle so you can plug into your trailer. But we used a 4-pole bracket and then a universal short bracket to get it mounted like this. You would have to purchase those separately if this is what you're looking for. But really, it's just a 4-pole plug. It does come with a dust cap to keep anything from getting inside there and damaging the connections, but it's just your standard 4-pole plug that will plug straight into your trailer. That's really all there is to it. It's not something that's super flashy. It's just something that you absolutely have to have if you plan on towing with your Volvo. As for the installation, if you plan on leaving it inside the vehicle, it's actually a pretty simple process. You just have to pull back some panels and plug into your tail lights. But if it's not something that you're looking to do, maybe you just don't have the time, the space, or the tools to do so, feel free to check out our dealer locator. If you have installed this yourself and you just want to share some tips or tricks with us, or you have some questions about the installation process, please feel free to leave a review or comment or just reach out to us. If you are planning on getting this set up on your Volvo, then follow along and I'll walk you through it. We'll begin our installation in the cargo area. Just make sure to remove any floor coverings that you might have. And then we'll focus on our cargo hook here. You'll need a pretty small flathead screwdriver to pop this plastic piece up. It has a little notch that you can get your screwdriver into. Then below that, there's a 10mm bolt. Take that out, and then we'll have another one on the other side. Now we need to remove this gray piece. There's going to be 2 pins holding it in. You can just turn these counterclockwise. They're threaded, and eventually they'll come out. And we'll get this out of our way. With that out of our way, we can access these 2 8mm bolts. One there and one right here. And we have 2 more, one on each side. Pull up on this threshold here. It'll just be held in by clips. Give it a good yank and it should come out of its spot. I folded down the seats just to get better access, but we have 2 more cargo hooks to remove the same way as we did those other ones. Just get your flathead screwdriver in there to pop this plastic out. And behind there will be a 10mm bolt. Reach back behind our panel here and start pulling it out. Should just be some clips holding it in, and then on the bottom we'll be able to kind of lift it up above this black piece here. We just need to peel it back enough so that we can reach back here, and you'll see a gray foam circle. We'll pull that out. We'll get that out of our way and reinstall it later. That's hiding our plug that we'll need access to, which I don't know if I'll be able to show you until I unplug it, but there's a locking tab and a pin that you'll push in, and then you can separate the connectors. Here's a better look at our plug once I got it unplugged. There was actually no locking tab. It was just kind of awkward to get your hand in there to be able to depress this, but just reach in there and you'll be able to get it. It's going to be the same as our new wiring harness, which we'll actually plug in this end right now. This end will plug into here, and we'll plug the other end back into where we unplugged that before. Before I get that tucked back there, I'm going to take our ground wire, the white one, and just peel it back a little bit, because once we get it plugged up in there, we'll still have to attach this to a good grounding point. But I'll get our one end plugged in. One thing to be sure of is that you have the yellow, brown, and red wire side, not the green side. As for our ground, we actually have a factory grounding location right here. That's a 10mm nut that I'll remove. Take that off. It's kind of an interesting setup that they have, but just make sure that you line up your wire with that notch there, and then reinstall the nut. For our black box, we just need to find a spot. There's actually a big empty space down here and some wiring that I'll just zip tie it to. This really can go anywhere, it just needs to be out of the way and make sure it's not banging around. But before we do that, I'm going to add on our black wire extension. This is our power wire that we need to run to the battery, which luckily in our case is right there, so we don't have to go very far. So the included butt connector, I just crimped it onto one end of our power wire, and I'll crimp it onto this end. So here's how I have my black box mounted. It's just zip tied around a wiring harness, and then I ran the remaining wires underneath this bracket here. Ran my black wire to the battery. We'll get that connection later. And then the green wire just needs to go to the same connectors but on our passenger side. So I'm just going to route it pretty neatly and keep the wires hidden and tuck it back here and plug it in the same way that we did on the driver's side. One thing I noticed when I plugged in our right side tail light is we don't have quite enough slack here. I don't want any stress on these wires, so what I'm going to do is just add another foot of wire, just to give a little bit of slack. If you don't have extra supplies like this, then I would just recommend relocating the black box to somewhere over here. That will bring the slack out of the wire, but I'll add this on now. For our power wire, I just routed it underneath, kind of followed the factory wiring harnesses, and we'll have to tie in this fuse holder. So on one end we'll put one of the included butt connectors. On the other end it will take a ring terminal, and with that ring terminal installed, we'll just put it on that stud on the positive side of our battery post. At this point, you could be done with the install. You could just store your wiring inside the cargo area here, but our neighbor actually wants it mounted outside the vehicle. So I'll walk you through that process, but there's no issue with just having it installed like this. I just recommend to throw your fuse in and test everything, and then get all your panels reinstalled. The first step of getting our wiring outside the vehicle is finding a way out. So there's a grommet here. I just cut a hole, and you could send your entire 4-pole plug. It will fit through that grommet. I just didn't want that large of a hole, and I have plenty of butt connectors to splice that back together. So I'll just send our 4 wires through. I'm using a piece of airline tubing. You could also use a clothes hanger or something like that, but we'll just simply pull down on this, and it should work its way out. We were able to route our wires outside the vehicle. I did have to remove 2 T20 Torx screws just so I could get better access to kind of guide the wires through. But from here, I just stripped back both ends of the wires. I crimped on some heat shrink butt connectors. Since we are outside the vehicle, I'll always recommend using heat shrink butt connectors to keep any water or anything from getting in there. But from here, it's just crimping down to each corresponding color. I got everything mounted up. I'll show you what I did. First, I just routed our wires in between our hitch and our heat shield. We're trying to stay away from the exhaust so that heat shield will protect our wiring. Then I installed a universal short bracket, which we have available here at eTrailer. I bolted up our 4-pole bracket, which we also have available here, and simply just pushed in our wiring and installed the dust cap. Now I've installed our fuse into our fuse holder and we're ready to test everything. Just go through the lights. I should have my tail lights on now. Here's the left turn, right turn, and brakes. With everything reinstalled, that's going to do it for our look at an installation of the Curt custom fit T-connector trailer wiring on our 2025 Volvo XC60.